made you feel a certain way about design and about architecture. So this is the way we experience design. It's not just the materials, it's not just the physicality of the buildings, but it's the mood and it's the emotion, it's the feeling that we get when we visit these places and we see these beautiful things. So this question of why do we have this response is really what pushed me to explore the way we communicate design through the medium of film. And I really found that a drawing cannot make you feel that. A technical thing can't make you experience that same emotion. So my name is Justice van Herven. This is Nisha. She's my wife. She's going to be talking a little bit later. And yeah, I'm a filmmaker in the design and architecture space. Some people say I'm the Steven Spielberg of architecture. But I've won some awards. I won Best Short Film at the Occuby Awards in London for an architectural film that I made. And I've also won the Mental Canvas 100K challenge in New York City. And I basically started making architectural films quite some time ago, but recently it's something that I've made more and more of, and I've realized the importance of using film as a medium in architecture. So right now I've started a video podcast called Design Stories, and we interview design guests such as Lazan Vivier, who's a fashion designer. I've interviewed multiple furniture makers like David Crano and Philip Hollander from Houtlander, and Mash T, Teresa Amjo, I'm sure you guys have heard of her. And right now I'm going to Madrid to make 15 short films for another CRE company, and it's all around the subject of design and architecture. So my mission is to inspire every designer, every one of you, to start making videos, start making films, using the device in your pocket, using whatever means that you have to communicate your designs, to communicate your art. So storytelling through film is a very interesting thing. It basically transports us into a designer's world. And for me, this is such an important thing because it takes us out of our reality into a different reality. And so filmmaking has the power to influence our identity and our culture and to communicate our unique voice. So what I mean by empathy is the viewer really gets put into our shoes. So we suddenly transported into their story. And for me, that is the fastest and best way to communicate in design. The example I want to show you guys is, you've probably seen it before, but when Apple launched the Macintosh many years ago in 1984, they made this campaign film, which was based on George Orwell's 1984 story about a dystopian future. I mean, okay, so I don't read too much into this because a lot of this is what life is like today. But the idea is that as an Apple consumer, as a client of this company, you don't believe in being controlled. You don't believe in conforming and listening to that, authoritarian voice. You have a rebellious spirit and you go against whatever that, public opinion is telling you to be. And when they launched this film, it's the most viewed video of all time. And it didn't even feature the product, Macintosh. So I thought that's a fascinating example of how you can influence a culture or change someone's mindset to believe in something that it's not directly linked to a product. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Seth Godin. He also talks about design and marketing. And he has a famous phrase that says, people like us do things like this. And it's about having empathy for the person that you are trying to market to or communicate with, and understanding that we are all part of a tribe. We are all part of a culture, and storytelling is a huge part of that. So designers must become filmmakers. Every one of you must become filmmakers in the sense that you can create a video, you can make your own video and tell your own story. And the power of storytelling is so strong that it is such a lost opportunity if you don't explore the medium, if you don't at least experiment with it. So I want to quickly show you a little bit of how my process works, because I often get brought into a project after the building has been built, the space has been built, and then people say to me, how can you communicate this design? And I say to them, guys, well, what was your concept? What was your process? And then sadly, none of that has been captured. So really what you should try and do actively as you are working on your designs, try and document as much of the process as you can. Even if at the time it doesn't make sense to you yet, just capture it and keep it, because when you reach that point, that aha moment, you can always go back and say, oh, this is where it came from. I actually had this random idea and it's evolved into this whole design. So this is what a lot of what I do. I create sketch storyboards. And it's a nice way to summarize your journey as you go through a project, but it's also a nice way of clarifying your thinking when you are planning a film or planning a shoot, or even reflecting back on your own design. So this particular storyboard was for an interior design space for a pharmaceutical company. So not the most exciting project, but, and the design team were like, no, really, we just designed it. We didn't really have a particular story in mind or particular process. So it was really tricky. So we came up with this idea of a fictional narrative that we let unfold in the space. So the story was about a character who got locked inside this space at night, and it was like night at the museum where weird things start to happen inside the office. So I'm going to quickly play this video for you guys. There should also be audio. I'll talk over the audio. Sorry. So okay, I'll just talk over. So he gets locked inside the office and basically exploring the space, he doesn't know that there's audio. Cool. Do I need to switch back to the other audience? Can I just keep talking? Okay, cool. So, yeah, so that was a different way to showcase the space. And people suddenly took a huge interest in, oh, what is that piece of furniture? You know, what is that? You know, how did you guys come up with that unique design? So it's definitely a medium for connection as well. So what I wanted to say is that design unfolds over time. A photograph sometimes can represent a static moment in that time, but what's incredible about film and video is that you can capture a whole process, a whole journey over time, and that really builds into a larger kind of picture of your project. And in that way, film can reveal what space and design of space is connected to time. So that's one of the unique things about filmmaking that I find so fascinating. It's not just what something looks like, it's what it feels like. So we can communicate things like rhythm and pacing using film and video that you can't always capture in other mediums. Okay, so what about what's happening at the moment with filmmaking and video? So over 500 hours of video content is uploaded to YouTube every minute. And that's a staggering number. So it's 720,000 hours of video every day that gets uploaded to YouTube. And YouTube as a platform isn't just for cat videos or influencers. And I mean, similar what's happening with TikTok, but Google prioritizes video in its search as well. So it's a great way to get your message out there and to have your project discovered too. In terms of attention and things, and the way that the trends are going in terms of attention and getting people's attention, in the year 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. Can you guys guess what it is in 2025? It's gone down to 8. So 8 seconds. So that's a lot less than a goldfish. I mean, we're thinking like we have a long attention span. In generally, we don't. So, but video retains 95% of the message when we watch a video, and that compares to 10% when we're reading a text or an article. So 95 versus 10, that's quite a big difference. And there was a study that was recently done about video as a marketing tool, and they found that it had an 88% positive ROI compared to other different marketing mediums. So people in our industry really should be using video more. I haven't seen a lot of architects or designers use video or filmmaking to communicate the ideas. We're stuck on physical drawings, you know, talking about our concepts in, you know, presentations that we have like static slides. It's just a way to absolutely elevate the work that you are showcasing. So examples of how you can use this. So this is an example of like a talking head style interview that we do a lot of. So whenever you are wanting to talk about your project, I would also recommend that you film yourself and try and record your presentation. You can post it online, hear it again and again, and maybe even pick up on the way that you're presenting. Maybe there's something that you can work on or that you can improve the way that you're presenting. But, you know, next time you are doing a presentation for a crit, ask a friend to literally just grab their phone and record you like this in a talking head style. And then the next step is you can include some B-roll, we call it B-roll footage, which is some other project-related stuff that you edit in alongside to help illustrate what it is you're talking about. A different way you can present is to use drawing. So this is a film I made using an app called Mental Canvas, and it's a story about two pen pals. One is in Joburg, one is in Cape Town. And this is a free software, Mental Canvas, I'm going to say it again. So you guys can use it to help communicate some of your design thinking and some of the stories that are related to your design. It doesn't have to be your final design, but it's a great way to talk about a bigger picture in a very quick way and tell a story very quickly without having to go out and film a whole bunch of footage. So this is about the feeling of what it's like to be in Joburg. And then the other pen pal, like I said, is in Cape Town. So in this instance, she's writing about the mother city and some of the things that she's experiencing in Cape Town. And then what we did is we added sounds to it as well. Yeah. Cool. So our screens are becoming our galleries. And these devices that we carry around with us are the new platforms where we are going to be absorbing content, gathering information, and telling stories. So I really want to encourage you guys to put as much time and attention as you can into the way that you deliver your story, the way that you create content, and to push to try and use video and filmmaking in whatever that story is. By total chance, reached out to some filmmakers that I admire in America, and I think what you'll find is that people in the video filmmaking industry are super kind and generous, and these guys are like world famous filmmakers, and they make all the videos for some of the most prolific architects in the States. And they just were like, cool, let's have a call, let's discuss, what are your ideas, what do you want to talk about? And one of the questions that I asked them was, what is the future of filmmaking for students? And so the one guy happened to be in Rome at the Zaha Hadid Maxi Museum at the time, so he just took a call in the building. So this is him talking about the future of storytelling and video for young filmmakers. Okay, so I've got a quick video about, if you guys know nothing about video and about filmmaking and how does the camera work and that stuff. So I see I'm running out of time, but yeah. That's like an old 8mm film. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the gear one, but basically this is everything that I use in one little backpack. And I sometimes do quite big productions with like 3 cameras and, you know, long 1.5 hour content sort of films. And what's amazing about technology is that you can literally now carry this video camera which shoots 4K like in your hands, whereas in the past you used to have like a huge news media kind of setup. If you want to get good audio, I highly recommend these wireless audio recorders, which are becoming more and more affordable. But that is, for me, the most important thing about an interview or a video is to capture good audio. Your image can be still a little bit rubbish and scratchy, but if you get good audio, it'll carry your whole story. You can carry your whole film. So you can have a microphone on the top of your camera like that. You'll see some bloggers and so on use these types of mics, but I really recommend the little wireless ones. You clip one onto, I mean, there's some gym influencers and stuff that you'll see wear them like on their t-shirts and so on, but they're really, really great for capturing audio, and it just records straight into your camera or into your phone. Okay. There's also GoPros and things for capturing B-roll, or if you're trying to film a little model, you can't get close with your other camera. But I really recommend, if you're looking to get equipment, start with like a little audio recorder that works on your phone. Your phone's quality is, if you've got a decent smartphone, it's better than any camera technology from even 5 years ago. So yeah, that's where you would start. You don't need gear to start. So borrow, beg, steal, don't steal. but really just see whatever camera you have access to, use that as your starting point. I quickly, in the last minute, Ruben, sorry, I've got 1 minute left. I want to show you some of the design stories episodes that I filmed. So this is with David Craner, the furniture maker. So he's a furniture maker, and he only works with wood, and he's starting to go into the architecture space and make completely wooden buildings. Very interesting. This is Lazan Babier. She's a fashion designer, and we're going to visit her dad's galvanizing factory. You can see the influence of her dad's factory, where she grew up in a galvanizing factory, on her fashion. And that's something we can only really communicate using videos and films. So this one is Ashti and Philip Hollander from Outlander. So you guys can follow me on Instagram and watch them later. But my challenge for you guys is to make. And to start small, to start with something that you're working on. Don't save your video or filmmaking for a project in the future. Start filming and recording something that you're doing today and you're doing already. And don't overthink it, trust the process, and the flow will find you. So as designers, we spend our lives trying to shape the future, but we often forget to document our present, and that is our story that will be told in the future. So thank you very much, guys. Does
anyone have any questions?
Yes, questions. Yeah.
I like the part where you said that you try to find emotions in terms of space to create. Because I truly believe that architecture is creating emotion through space. From the time we see, the time we and so on. Do you think that, and we can't fight it, do you think that AI is going to steal that emotion from videography? Or do we start, I don't know, do we start prompting the AI to learn how we think and how we feel within our videos? Are you threatened by it, or are you the purist who says, hell with AI, I'm going to do it the pure way?
The video tech that AI is using is absolutely incredible. I'm not of course, I'm intimidated by it, but I'm not seeing it as a threat to filmmakers right now. I think it will change the landscape forever for any video maker. We use our tools in editing as well. Adobe Premiere has this function where if your clip is too short and you need to extend it, you literally just drag it and it fills in frames using AI on your existing footage. And that breaks my head. So I don't know how that works. And the other day I was playing with Midjourney and I accidentally used the video function instead of, because I uploaded a picture and I wanted to get more like alternatives of that one picture, but instead it made multiple videos of that image. And the image was already generated by Midjourney. It was a fictional image of a fictional person. And suddenly it was brought into video live. And I'm like, geez, I created this character in minutes, and now there's a whole video of this person. Yeah. So what does worry me about AI is losing grips with identity and having someone use your identity for the wrong reasons. But in terms of our creative potential, I think it's limitless. And I think it's an amazing technology that you young guys should really explore. You should be telling me about AI videos and, showing your work using these things, because it's possible to upload a static image of your design, of your building, and then say to Midjourney, do a 360 orbit. And so, there's this thing of like, I forget what it's called, but how do we see past the horizon? And I think we can use it as a tool to imagine things we can't even see. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Just want to commend you on the exceptional work. I think your precision and your accuracy with your eye, because it starts with your eye on how you start to project this immaculate. And I would also endorse the idea of alternative mediums in general, right, within the design landscape. The one thing that I want to ask is, how do you conceptualize, similar with the process of filming, right? How do you conceptualize the scoring
Big
to
question.
be synchronized with what you are filming, right? So that we don't have overly dramatic scoring whereby the scene is quite mellow, So how do you go about it? Is it a similar parallel process, or is it done separately outside of the filming? Or already, when you're filming, you're already synchronizing the immersion of the soundscape?
Yeah, really good question. I've had it before where I have a song, find a song, and then I'm like, oh, I know what the visuals are looking like before I even start filming.
Super.
But sometimes, and we don't always have the luxury of, like a lot of the videos that I do have custom scores that are composed by musicians or artist composers. Like we just did for FNB Art Joburg, we did a film with the VS Studio, and for the Wool Festival, which Nisha's going to talk about later, we did some films where we worked with a composer and they would go out into the field, record sounds, make sounds at home, and then put that all together. And so it is a back and forth. Like you'll get the sound and you'll be like, oh, this clip feels like it belongs there in the piece. And then sometimes you'll put it there and it won't work. So it's like this constant back and forth where you're like, actually, let's let the music run. And then, I sometimes just dump all the footage in and then like, see, does it match up or does it? Yeah. But, if you make a first few videos, you're going to do what everyone does and make it epic. Yeah. Everyone does like these, it's like a movie trailer. Yeah. It's like, reveal. Everyone does that. I've done it many times.
That could take away from the visuals, right?
Yeah.
It's like balanced in some cases.
Yeah, so I usually try and keep each clip to like 3-4 seconds to get the pacing right. But sometimes you need longer and you need to breathe. And it's something Nisha actually told me about my videos. She's like, it's enough time to breathe and absorb what they're looking at. So sometimes you have to let the music just find a calm moment and then have just like a breather. And you'll see it when you watch shows on Netflix or whatever. There'll be intense action and then there'll be like okay, let's unpack what just happened. Otherwise it's just, you can't watch something that's just cut like this.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Cool, I hope that made sense. Anyone else? Yes.
The auditor is asking if I had 5,000 rand to spend, for the channel, where do you think?
Okay, for $5,000, I would take the $5,000 and put it in my bank and use my phone. But if you have a little bit more budget and you've made, I think in general, start with your phone. Our smartphones can do slow motion. They can do like zoom in macro shots. You can do time lapses. These things, back in the day when we had like basic filmmaking equipment, it would take us ages and you'd need a whole separate gear and setup. Just the image stabilizing that we have in our phone is amazing, because a lot of the old videos we made, you like have such shaky footage, and then you'd have to get a gimbal, and then you don't need a gimbal now. You just like literally. One thing I would possibly invest in is a little tripod. And then whatever money you have left, spend on the sound, the audio. You can get a little wireless mic. It doesn't have to be a Rode mic or one of the fancy brands. It can literally be a little Chinese one. But yeah, that's what I would spend the cash on. And then once you're ready to up your game, I'd buy a second-hand camera. So what happens is Sony are constantly bringing out new models. So even 2 or 3 generation old cameras are doing 4K, high bitrate, full frame. So I'd go for something like that. Get an old Sony.
Right.
Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Cool. Okay.
So if I you said you're going to start the video. There's no videos in the PowerPoint.
It's just because I say quick video.
Can I make it a PDF?
PowerPoint, yeah.
Just so I can upload it to the portal?
Okay. Well, then it's just. You should be able to upload the file.
That's sometimes takes long. Just don't make sure we lose our
Already told us.
Sit down, no internet.
Full reach. Even if it's, that might be close to.
Okay. You can also talk to the screen.
Okay. Just to everyone online, we're going to start with the next presentation probably in about 3 minutes.
Let's just get, people are just using the bulb.
Yeah. I think we're going to give another minute or so and then we're going to start. Just for everyone who hasn't met Prof. Des yet, this is Prof. Des Loubser, the original founder of the Greenside Design Center from across the road. We're quite excited to have you present. This is where we start. This was the original building.
45 square meters, 30 students, and my partner and I, and an art fringe.
That's great. Des Loubser, thank you so much. Looking forward to your talk.
Okay, I just want to play this video for you
Video.
as an introduction. And it's the only one I've got. And in the middle, the slides are terrible, so you have to ride with me for a while.
No judge.
Okay, we'll start with it. But you must actually just have a look at this because this is about empathy. Okay, and that is one of the things that I think is hugely important and something I'm going to talk about for this whole talk, basically, and service design. Okay, so there we go. Anybody got tears in their eyes? It's actually it's the weirdest thing because all of us have been to a hospital at some stage of life. And the weirdest thing about a hospital is nobody wants to be there except the people that work there. And if you can start actually understanding how other people feel about things, it makes such a huge difference to how you go about designing things. Because you're putting yourself into the place where you really understand what design is about, what architecture is about. And unless you do that, you are just wallpapering. You're just stripping and patching. And you're making interiors a bit like that interior that you showed us, where there's no concept. It's just, we're just going to do another space. If you're going to do a coffee shop, you've actually got to plan it. You've got to think what your concept is. You're going to have to decide what you are selling, who you're selling it to. You need those touch points, and that's something that I'd like to speak about today, so that we can actually just have an idea of where we're going. Okay, so. Have you been to a hospital in Joburg lately? Does it look anything like that? It's actually really quite sad that, I also look at, as an example, just imagine a poor woman who wakes up every morning. She has to sign people in for an operation or whatever it might be. And she goes into the space where she hasn't even got a place to put her handbag properly. And she deals with these people all day that are grumpy, that are sitting in an aisle opposite each other, and they're all awkward. And we don't think about those kind of things, and that's hugely important. What is the space supposed to represent? Who is going to use that space? How is it going to work? And how do we actually arrange a waiting room, as an example, so that it doesn't just look like a row of seats with a few magazines, and we're too scared to look at each other. It's almost like when you climb into the lift, you don't know where to put your head. You're sort of looking all over the place. It's a little bit on the weird side. So that was one thing. So I'm just putting a few examples here of what hospitals could look like. Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, by the way, if you haven't been, it's really a good space to go to. The only thing is that my wife picked up was that it's beautiful around the walls, but people are lying in bed looking up at a white ceiling. So we missed an opportunity there as well, So it's just something that we need to look at. All right, this is in the same hospital. What I really loved about this is that this is sort of interactive. So you actually play with these things on the wall. And you can take pieces off and put them somewhere else. And it just makes the whole thing an experience. So it's no longer going to a space and just sitting in a chair. You actually interact. And I think the parents probably interact more than the kids do, because they've become children all over again. So those are the important things. It's also good for the people in the hospital. This is inside a lift in that hospital. These little portals that the kids can actually look into to have an experience. So even in the lift, they've thought about the empathy. They're thinking about the customer. They're thinking about who they're designing for. And I think that's actually quite a lovely idea, don't you?
Yeah.
This was in Amsterdam. It was a library that we visited. It's 5 stories. And that library is like a shopping center. It's full. It's interactive. It's got places for people to sit. It's got pods. It's got, you name it, Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi all over the place. And once again, it's a beautiful space to be in, and it really is busy. There are thousands of people in that building. So that's just something else to think about. And then we design for our audience and the people that are going to use the space. I think that's also quite important with these little kids. And I love that little one with it's mommy and me, because I was always taught at school it's mommy and I. And I thought, now we've got a book that's actually telling me it's not right. So it's just another one of those things. All right, now we get into my little shitty slides, but that's okay. Oops, too fast. All right, so we're getting on to service design, and we're talking about empathy, and we're talking about how we've actually got to also look cross-culturally when we're designing. It's not about us. If I were designing a restaurant for a northern suburb, it's completely different to designing a restaurant for an area where you cannot afford to even go to a Nando's, right? But the experience must be the same for those people, whoever's using that space. Many services are not designed because, you know, when you think about it, undergrounds, car planning, all of those things are services, but they evolve, you know. Everything that we see around us is virtually about service. And it's about us actually understanding those services and understanding who we're designing for and why we're designing. And then things will change, actually. And they are produced and consumed at the same time. And that's where the problem comes in, because when you've got someone, like, for instance, we've designed a new website. And then all of a sudden, the people that actually designed the website don't talk to the sales team, who then have to actually respond to the people that respond to the website. So there's a breakdown in communication, and then there's a breakdown in trust. And that's why I think you find that, and a lot of our students, in fact, virtually the whole of the multimedia department now work for banks. It's quite amazing. They're designing apps, and that's the biggest service design that you can get. You know, so I'll talk about that in a moment as well. Okay, we've got it. When we do, the challenges here are services produced and consumed at the same time. We need to create meaningful services. Transdisciplinary approaches need to be set in place. And that's quite important too, and I'll talk about that in a second. But service design as an approach brings together a number of practices and systems already present and explored in both business and design contexts. A more holistic approach ensures that products and services offered are integrated and optimized for both the end user and the organizational stakeholders. So you can actually see from these little diagrams, your service systems, the service transformation, service policies, service experiences. You've got to actually take a hell of a lot of stuff into account when you're designing. It's not just taking a pencil and starting to make sketches about nothing. What is the concept? And if you go through this process, which I'm going to get to the end, you actually get 80% of your design done before you actually start putting pen to paper. It's the strangest thing, but you've already resolved a hell of a lot of problems before you get to the end. Okay, there's a solid and deep trust in each other and the team's purpose. Everyone works towards the shared goals, and this is in the team. The team might have a psychologist, a social worker, it might have a couple of designers, an architect, whatever it might be. I always call architects designers because I think we're all in the same space. So in my head, there are no such things. If you're a product designer, a multimedia designer, whoever you are, you're a designer. There's clarity on how to collaborate and how to accomplish tasks. Everyone understands what is expected. Tension and friction are acknowledged and addressed in a supportive manner. That's something else that we have to learn as we go through life. Disagreements are looked at as positive and constructive criticism, and it should be encouraged. Because if you don't disagree, you're all just walking down the same road together. So there has to be this understanding that this is a team effort, and you can always put on a bonus hat as well, all these hats, you know, so there could be a bad cop, a good cop, and all sorts of things that happen in that group. So there will always be different personalities. Every single one of us is different. If we weren't different, we'd all have the same handwriting. Now imagine that.
Tragic.
It'll be pretty horrible because you can never be accused of cheating because you never know who did. Okay, everything is a part of the team. So we acknowledge the importance of experience when designing new services. Service design is a multidisciplinary field that involves marketing, human resources, operations, organizational structure, and technology principles. Following this holistic approach, service design orchestrates service elements such as physical environment, people, customers, and employees, and service delivery. So I think that's also, quite an important thing to acknowledge. Sure, I'm running out of time. Now there are lines of engagement. I think the next slide will actually show this a little bit better. So I'll just go on to that. We have touch points when we're designing. Okay, we have the client experience, whatever that might be, whatever space we're designing is for someone, even if it's a home, that's your client. Okay, but then if you, as I said with the coffee shop, if you're just going to put up a menu on a little with a chalkboard and you have no service delivery, you're losing. And it's always a good thing to actually have those touch points that actually happen. That's the service interaction seen and experienced by the end user. And then the line of invisibility, which is, and these have to work together because you have to have the right people doing the right job to understand what that delivery is at the end of the day. So you've designed it, it's out there now, but it also needs to be serviced. And that's why we call it service design. It's served by the people that actually have to be the team that are making the sales, that are answering the phone, and not listening to a bot that doesn't understand what you're doing. So all of those things, I think, you need to actually look at in quite a lot of detail. And then, the touch points described the moments of connection, touch points may be virtual, digital, but I think that's quite obvious. And design of services must consider the needs of both external and internal users, that's what I just said. And this is a little chart that actually shows you your touch points and going from the department on the left-hand side. We have recommendations, word of mouth, printed ads, material, television, radio ads, third-party websites, optimizing research, and we carry on and on and on around. And by the time we come back, we are looking at the extended experience in the bottom left-hand quadrant, which I think is also really quite important because that's how you actually retain people. When you have a bad experience, it just doesn't work. And your project fails. So think about that. This is recorded so you can go back to these slides whenever you need to or however you need to. So we need to value our customers. We need to spend some time understanding the interactions that we have with them, etc., etc. And service design faces both ways. We've discussed that as well. We're talking about we have to have systems in place, but we're also selling something. Whether it's a space, whether it's a cup of coffee, whatever it might be, whether it's a hospital bed, whatever we're doing, it all comes into that. So that when you go through the system, you go through the process, and this is what we would do. We would go to the engage stage where we actually look at what we're looking for. We explain. So those are sort of internal things, and that's where the designers come in and all the other professionals that we have in this multidisciplinary cauldron. We explore, so we start doing prototyping. Then once we've got all of that information, then you start prototyping. That's when you start making models, making videos. That's a very good point. And then we extend and we reflect on what we've achieved. We take it back. We bounce it off the people that we, have we made it? Is it right? Is this what you were thinking of? Is this what we want to do? And then if that doesn't work, we go back to square one and we just go through the process again. So this is really the design process, just made a little bit more complicated. But in fact, it's a little bit easier. Right, I just wanted to go back to a couple of short things, just make it the time. When we're designing, there's a purpose for whatever we're designing. Okay, now this was a really clever design because what it did was, first of all, it carries a hell of a lot more water. It's the Hippo roller. It carries a hell of a lot more water than you can carry on your head or in a wheelbarrow or in, little cans, water cans or whatever you want to do. And what's astonishing about this product is that it's now used in Monaco. This is how they carry water onto the boats. So that shows you the diversity of the product and how through good design you can come up with something really quite special. And then I've got just a couple of examples of other designs. This was an award-winning, in fact, it won the grand prize. It was 500,000 euro in the Index Awards in Denmark. And it was a very good concept. That actually, you can drink water like that, and it comes out the other side clean, right? Because it's filtered all the way through. So it's really quite clever. The only problem with this was, have you ever seen anybody in a river drinking water like that? So, and it was $10 for one of these things. That's about, in Africa, that's a lot of money. So, and it really is, it's astonishing. So then what did they do? They revamped the product and turned it into a hiker's life straw, which is a beautiful looking object. So what is wrong with doing the same for everyone? Why do we categorize people in this way? Where does that cultural divide come from? How do we work on that? I think we're very fortunate in South Africa that we do have so many cultures, we do have so many various backgrounds, because I think we've got a much better understanding of what the world is about. And really, I'm not going to go through this, but I think that culture really does matter. And I'll just give you a few stats over here. This is the world's GDP, cultural and creative industries provide 4.5%, but it's growing at 10% a year. It's growing faster than the car manufacturing industry, et cetera, et cetera. So those are just the little things that I think we need to look at. But, in conclusion, I think just remember when you're designing that you're not designing your perfect house. You're designing for someone else. And just the really last point was, I've got a friend in Australia, Kim, and he's a very good interior designer. And he says that, the worst part about clients is they bring a postcard from their holiday, and then they want the architect to and in Australia, it's usually a house in Bali. So, beware. All right. And that's me done. Thanks very much.
Do you have any questions?
Yep.
I would like to know how sitting with short deadlines, right? And you've got to get designs out by a certain time. Clients are expecting designs, especially if you're working for a corporate client. A lot of hospital designs, things are corporate clients. How do you factor in the time that it's going to take to design little things like looking glasses and lifts and flappable artworks on the walls? Where do you find that time? How do you build for that time?
I understand. I spent many years designing, so I know that pain. It is a problem. And clients are probably the worst things that we ever invented. It's just the way it works. But at the same time, I think once you get into this kind of system, it doesn't take long to get to the detail. And when you're doing that brainstorming in that first phase, when you're looking at, okay, who are we designing for? How are we designing?
Yeah.
That could take 2 or 3 hours, and you could come up with 100 different solutions. And it's through that brainstorming where the most amazingly stupid ideas come out. But if they're put on paper, then all of a sudden you can adapt and change and work with them. And someone in the group will actually say, but hang on a second, this is something quite special. So it doesn't take that long. And the other thing that I think is really good about this system is when you go to the client, you can justify why he has to spend $100,000 on you, because we go to the client, we've got the end product, and we say, this is what you've done. And the guy looks at it and says, shit, you're charging me for a logo 50,000 Rand. How do you justify that? And you say, well, sorry, we're not AI. So,
I just want to add to that.
answer to
Yeah, I just want to add to that as well. It goes back to what you're speaking about is empathy and dignity, and how you design for that. Because like, we recently did a student housing project, and our clients were very like budget conscious, time conscious. Why do you guys want to design this? And you know, throughout the whole process, we fought hard to create a space that, you know, elevates the students and their idea of what their housing will be. So trying to be as empathetic as we could to the students, and the whole way people said, no, they're going to break this, you know, don't trust students, they're like so heavy on everything has to be student proof, whatever. So we designed a beautiful, the whole lower level is one massive common area with, I mean, it was, the client said, this is not good. It looks like a hotel. These students aren't going to study. And we went back a year later and it was pristine. Nothing had been damaged. The rooms are still perfect. And I believe that if you design with empathy and you give people something that's more aspirational and more that they have a sense of pride, then you have to fight hard for it. But it creates a better product and something that they will look after, and the people in the building look after that.
completely.
So I back your empathy.
Yeah, just one more question. I think, yeah, that's great. I think it comes up to trust, eh? It's good to say. So if you could give us 3 ways to start designing with empathy, 3 points, what would they be?
Well, they're in the presentation, please. Okay, we first thing when we engage, we're reflecting on the context and our own bias. So that's one of the biggest things you've got to get over is you've got to get over that ego thing.
Yes.
That's very important. Develop a service approach, embrace the open mindset, explore the context of those involved. So I think that's what you were saying as well with the student thing. Is that the one in Brompton?
No, this was Walker Park.
It's also beautiful design. Also, you know, like a hotel.
Yeah.
Explain. So now once you've engaged, you've got all sorts of little bits and pieces done, then you explain. You consider the influencing factors, analyze and research your findings, define your main insights from analysis, write a challenge statement. And that is probably the most important thing. It's how might we design a reception area in a hospital that has empathy and dignity for the person sitting behind that switch. And how might we design the front end of that reception desk so that you are screened off from other people, so you don't have to tell them that you're coming in for a cancer operation or whatever you do. You feel like you privatize. So that I think is important. And then from there you explore, you find a solution. And then the last thing is that to extend that so that you develop, you reflect on the solution in context, develop strategy to implement and impact measures, evaluate learning throughout the process, consider skills and knowledge gained. And I think that is where the empathy and yes, dignity, as you said, comes into play. Because that's when you finally getting to the point where you're producing something that you really feel very strongly about. And I think what's wonderful about this too is that it's such a wonderful thing when you go away from a project and you think, I made a difference. And design should improve the quality of life for all. That's what design is really about, improving the quality of life.
good.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just hold on. I want to see. Oh, okay. Okay. This is the guy who's very, I don't know what you're talking about, but you, I need that, what a design.
All right, everyone, we are ready for the next talk. Please welcome Tassos from Super Ultra. We are also very excited to have you join our talks, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. How's it going? Can I just check how many students? How many students? Professionals? And I'm just trying to calibrate myself quickly. So, graphic design. Architecture. Oh, can I see hands? Oh, there you go. Any other discipline?
There'll be a lot online.
All right. Are they all architects as well, or is there something else?
Architects, interior designers, there will be some graphic designers as well.
Okay, good. This is Maeve. If you apply for a job at Super Ultra, you get to chat to Maeve. Looks like a chatbot, right? She's not exactly the chatbots that you know. She talks like a real human. She knows everything about our business. We've fed all of that in there. And we opened a position last week, and within 2 days, we had 80 applications for the position. 80, or at least let's say, we had 80 people chatting to Maeve. And we put that out publicly, which is something we don't normally do. Normally we hire, from specific high quality institutions like Greenside and from friends and networks and so on. But this one we went public with. We had 80 people coming in, of which 21 got through the chat with Maeve and were able to then go to our assessment. 4 people chose to do that assessment, of which 1 person finished the assessment. And they look okay. We're hoping for some more. Can you imagine the effort of having 80 interviews? We're a small studio. We can't do that. So Maeve was built in 2 days by our head of studio using a technology that we use quite a lot, that we build into our digital products. Super Ultra is we think of ourselves as a digital product design company. We do UI, UX, CX, service design, positioning, proposition design. And we mostly work with big corporations that have the money to build the things that we design. So we have another version of Maeve. If you go to our website and you want to find out more about Super Ultra, you can chat to her on the public part of our website, and you can ask any question, and she'll give you information. And it's quite an experience. The technology we used is the same technology that is used if you book a plane ticket on Fly Saturday on WhatsApp. You can book that ticket end to end on WhatsApp. And you can make mistakes, you can get the dates wrong, you can say it's Wednesday the 20th and it's actually Wednesday the 21st. The thing will tell you, listen, do you want to be on the Wednesday or do you want to be on the 21st? They're not the same thing. It understands the world, has a general understanding. And if you come back a month later and you need to repeat that flight and you say, listen, I'd like the same again, in English like that, I'd like the same again, it'll be like, oh, okay, cool. So you like to fly Friday afternoons and land before dinner. You like to come back on Monday mid-morning. Cool. These are the flights I've got for you. Pretty cool. So Maeve's built on the same technology as that. That was my first little bit on AI. Very cool. Is everybody still hanging in there? What do you guys think about the use of AI in recruitment and booking plane tickets and telling people information? Love it. Yeah. Yeah. In general or just for the AI? Actually, I shouldn't ask you. You can be friends here. Yeah. Yeah. Noted. Yeah.
Just AI, in the sense that it's an advancement in technology, just as technology is always advanced. It's always been a tool that we can use to support humankind and grow humankind. So I feel it's something that we need to now incorporate into our studies, because it's a leading tool that's going to dictate our future. So being quiet to it and not acknowledging it just means it's doing it behind. Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's good.
Yeah, it's just a tool.
I think I'm on the fence about it. I think if you're automating stuff, that's fine. Like filtering, for example, is it like 80 people?
80 people.
We're talking through and like
Why?
one person finished working, so you just filter that whole process.
And not an incredible like fit, so it's okay.
Yeah, but it's the filtering, and when you consider how much money goes into people, what you call it, recruitment. That's a designated budget that goes in. But now that you have this AI chatbot which filters all of that, which obviously you can save something. But like yeah, the automation process, it's fine. Everything else.
Yeah. Great for automation, yes.
I just want to ask, does the automation include demographics, background scanning into the filtering?
In this particular case.
So
In this case.
yeah.
No. Okay. There are specific things like we want the person to be living in South Africa, right? Even though it's a remote position, we prefer them to be living here. So we'll check it for that. But no, there's no other demographics or scanning. It's all about the person's fit for the position. So, I thought, normally I do these things and I talk about the work and I explain and I give you a really nice picture of all the projects and I make it look real cool. Like, hey, and I don't show you like the nasties. But today I'm going to show you a little bit, not only, also the AI will come up again, just foreshadowing. And I'd like to talk, I will show you some of the work, but I thought it would chat to you a little bit about the professional practice and how we run the studio and how we've designed the studio to run. So like a little bit of behind the scenes as well. Is that okay? Yeah, might be interesting. Let's see. So we run, our main tool of choice is Figma. I don't know if anybody knows that. We are always trying new technologies because we design new technologies. We design banking systems and insurance stuff and logistics things and finance, whatever. So we have to try new stuff. And we use a lot of different systems. We've, currently for our CRM, we use Monday. It's kind of crap, like all of them. We had a project management software that we were running called Trello. Anyone? But at some other point, we just started moving that onto Figma as well. I'll show you in a second. So we're changing those things all the time. So a lot of stuff happens for us inside of Figma. When we start to design, so sorry, what I've got over here, that's basically all our projects are sitting over here. And you can go into the various clients and, pick them out. Then, okay, it says project management over here. I really don't believe very deeply in management or project management. Okay. So it's like a disclaimer. A long time ago, we worked with Standard Bank, moving 3,000 of their developers from old-fashioned project management to agile way of work thing. And that's where I got converted, right, out of thinking that things have to be managed. So what we believe in is that great work happens in twos and threes, and that the right people for us are people that manage themselves and have an internal drive to do the thing. So I don't live in a world where I need to ask people to do stuff. I live in a world where we have to help people not do too much, so they don't burn out.
That's a great world. I second that world.
Okay. Is that your world?
That's not world.
Okay. All right. And you operate that way?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. I had a conversation last week with somebody asking me, like about project management. How do we do project management? I really had a blank moment where I was like, shit, is there something we haven't been doing? Because, no, we plan very well, and I'll show you in a second. So when we start a project, we do discovery, like what Des was talking about, but then we call it discovery, like going to find. This is pretty typical for a project. This is like, okay, going to design something. What is the problem statement? We have templates in everything, like all of our, if you're doing CX, UX, UI, service design, we have the entire process worked out with all of the possible permutations, all of the different tools. It's all built in Figma. So when you're on that project, it's very hard not to get it right. You just got to go through the process and pick whichever tool is most relevant, which we normally do in the planning stage up front. But of course, as things change, you can flip. So everything is already there. People work according to the process, which makes life so much easier. We've got our stakeholder map over here, and we've got a current pricing thing that we have to understand. And this is how you earn awards. This is some loyalty system. That's how you earn awards. And there's a comparison of two different things that we have to figure out. Then we get into these are chat GPT summaries of interviews that we've had with various stakeholders. So we record everything, goes into, well, we use Crisp on our devices or Claude if it's in real life, or ChatGPT. We get into the text, and then we start to just process the text from there to get into, because like a 3-hour meeting can be like a few lines, could have been a text message. And then these are our user interviews. So one of our core principles as a business, doesn't matter what we're designing, if it's an app or if it's some other kind of user experience, is go and see for yourself. And we knew this, but what really drove it home is at some point we were working with Nando's, and the first day of work on the Nando's project was Friday evening, 7 o'clock, in a Nando's kitchen, behind the grill. Not grilling, just helping people and getting in the way, and like feeling the chaos, It's like running to the fridge to go and get something. So everything we do, we start like that. We're working tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I'm going to Soweto to go and hang out in taverns until lunchtime. I hope I make it back. I'm not talking about Soweto, I'm talking about the taverns. I hope I don't have to have a beer or two. So that's because we have to design a thing that's relevant for taverns. So everything we do is go and see for yourself, and then we talk to people. And there's a question about empathy for Des. So that's one way. The other way, well, that's one thing. The other thing is we talk to the people who experience the problem. And we talk to them as if we're psychologists. Like it's kind of like therapy. It's like, okay, this thing that you have to do here, does it suck or is it awesome? I mean, if we're there, it's probably because it sucks. Right? Yeah, it sucks. And what we do is we go in as designers. We don't go in as experts in finance or, experts in retail or whatever thing. And we are just like, done. Like, how does it work? What do you do? Can you explain to me? Like when you place an order on the thing and it has to and then the moment the person says to you, what do you make it? Listen, this is how, you don't understand. This is how it works. Then you're like, okay, fine. Now we're getting somewhere. The person is going to explain to us how the world works. So we really go for that moment. So it's a way of getting empathy with the person who experiences the problem. So yeah, you get the idea, right? So every single project starts with this amount of crap of like, this is comparisons of product. This is what works for members, what does not work, opportunities, thoughts, etc. I mean, this is, I don't even know, this is a comparison of other products. So we do competitive analysis to that level of detail. Yeah. It's faster with AI, but AI also gets it wrong. So we started a project like that. Then this over here is a rewards program prototype that we built. This yeah, you can click here and you can do stuff like as savings. I don't even want to go too far into this damn thing because I don't know how this prototype works, but anyway, go back, you can go to this thing and check. So it's like if you show this on the screen, it looks like a phone app, right? If you don't have it. This is about 3 weeks worth of work in Figma to get to this point. This one looks slightly crappy. It's not branded. It's not particularly well laid out. The graphic designers, if they were here, would lose their minds over this UI. But it works. It's like fully functional. I can click into anything here, it works. And it was about 1.5 hours of prompting. Prompts on the side of here. So a designer that would take 3 weeks to design this using Figma is now doing this in 1.5 hours, gets you somewhere between 70 and 80% of the way there, but you can change it with a single, and you can keep iterating. What has that done for us? We used to have to go and understand everything like deeply, we still do that. Then you have to come up with a whole bunch of ideas of what it could be. Then we would spend weeks prototyping that and testing it back with the users we interviewed in the beginning. Now, and we have like peculiar customers that have been irritating us for years with like, do I really have to go through that whole freaking schlep? How many weeks? Like, am I going to pay you all this money? So specifically for them, and now in the age of AI, we understand the world and immediately start spinning up as many prototypes as we want and go and show those to people and get it wrong like 80% of the time, but get it right so that there's an instant gratification out of doing all of that testing like immediately. And then once we have all of that stuff in, everybody's like calms down and like they settle in for like, okay, let's build the right thing. So instead of waiting for prototyping, we do it earlier on. That's relatable? Okay. I was going to show you some cool stuff. Can I show you one or two cool things? This is for Anglo-American. It's a flight app. And you can go there if you're an employee and you can book your flights. And it's all super nice. This is in production now. If you work for Anglo-American, this is how you book your travel. Tra-la-la. Sorry, I'm just onboarding myself. There we go. And then you want to plan a trip. It's like, cool. What I want to do it for, etc., etc. Okay, we're traveling in Australia. Here's my route. Gets me all the way. This project, the client came to us and said, so this is like, I don't know, you can tell me if this is. We firmly believe now that and by the way, now in our studio, we seldom get briefs anymore. We now mostly get problems. Like, I don't know, our clients have learned, don't tell them what you want, just tell them what your problem is. Because mostly they come to us with the wrong problem. Like in this case, they said, hey, we need a flight app to make sure we get the flight bookings right. We're like, awesome. When we did the discovery, we realized the flight is the least of your problems. They had a high percentage of people that could travel from Canada to Australia, drive for hours in the outback, get to the gate of the facility and be denied access. So you'll see the story now when it gets to the nice marketing piece. So getting from your desk in one part of the world into the boardroom where you're supposed to be in another part of the world, end to end, is the real problem. The flight is part of that. If you don't really get into understanding what the real problem is, you're never going to figure that out. And what you produce at the end is going to sort of like work, be okay. It's like, just another freaking, got a nice flight thing, but what about the rest? You with me?
Yes.
This is, okay, should we do onboarding? Why not? This is the Lexi app. It's a company in Pretoria that's got a really great story. I mean, we work with mostly very big companies, but this is a smaller company that started 3 years ago selling hearing aids over the counter in pharmacies in the USA. And they're now the #1 in America doing that. And they recently just merged with another company to totally dominate that market. Incredible. From Pretoria. Yeah, seriously. The problem with that is that ordinarily, if you get hearing aids, and don't think it's just old people. It can happen to you anytime. I'm convinced. I'm in denial about needing hearing aids myself. I don't know. Too much loud music. The problem is that ordinarily when you get hearing aids, you go through an entire journey with an audiologist who helps you to kind of like get used to these things, because it's a cognitive thing, it's a social thing, it's a self-esteem thing. It's like a whole bunch of issues. It's not just, and also, by the way, it's not that the volume got turned down in your hearing. There are frequencies involved, and getting those frequencies back is quite an unpleasant sensory experience. So you're going to navigate all of that stuff, and lots of people give up if they don't have a good audiologist walking themselves through that journey, right? Sounds like you know the story.
I have hearing aids.
Okay.
Since I was in grade,
All right.
and they really changed a lot.
Yeah, they have changed. Yeah.
The experience changes so much, but before I was in grade, I struggled with friendships. Being in a group, you kind of can't hear one thing. Your mind goes everywhere. And with my specific hearing, I have selective hearing. So when I'm in a group, I tend to hear what's around me, not what's within the group. So when I have my hearing aids, I have 4 different types of programs. One that focuses on your surroundings, one that focuses on your lecture,
Yes.
and there's certain with music. Now I've got new hearing aids and I can connect into my phone, listen to music, listen to all those things, and it really makes a difference. I struggled with communicating with a lot of people, and ever since I got them, I'm more interactive with people. I can hear a story, I can actually communicate with people.
Yeah.
It's not a one-side thing anymore, so it really helps a lot.
Proper life changer. There we go. Thank you. That's so cool. So now the challenge with, like you can imagine, selling them over the counter is that you don't have someone to walk you through that experience. The app has to do it for you. So the Lexi app that we designed, which before it was even released, started winning awards. This is the onboarding part. It's like, so onboarding with any other app that you get is such a pain in the ass. It's like, password, begin this, I hate you. Stop. But in this case, it's actually one of the most important parts of the experience, because it starts your journey and it starts to get the relationship going of how we're going to work together. You know, so it's like, okay, this is how the thing works. I haven't asked you for your name or anything. You know, it's like adjust them so you can get your perfect sound. That's how that works. And it talks, hey, listen, if you do these things that we want you to do, like adjust the volume and whatever, you're going to get rewards, and you know, then you get discounts on your next hearing aid and all of that stuff. Because activity, keeping people active in the thing is very important for this. Connect with an expert, and we give you a chance to speak to an expert immediately here. And then you can buy things like you need cleaning kits and you need accessories and all kinds of stuff. And then there's the coach, which is built into this thing. And then you kind of go through this whole, all right, now I can ask you some details, because I've kind of like shown you the territory. Let's see, okay, you can pick an avatar. It's like, okay, that's me, Henry, you know, create this account. And there's like more stuff to do. Need remote assistance, yes, whatever. I haven't done this prototype for a while, as you can see. And so you go through these different tasks and you kind of work along with it. And the biggest predictor of whether people will get the fullest benefit out of their hearing is the degree to which they're involved in all of the things. So it's been super carefully designed to do the things that give people the right benefits and kind of walk you through the journey. And that's what the app does. And then you keep going with it over time. I can go, yeah, anyway. So, but you get the concept. Amazing company, amazing product, pretty good app. Yeah, I was going to show you all our various templates, but I mean, seriously, how much do you really need to know? Like, stuff is all templatized. So our team board, these are our projects on this side over here. These are ones that, there's nothing in limbo at the moment. You see this smoldering log over here. It's like when a project goes into limbo. It's like it's not getting back to us or whatever. When they're completed, we burn them and dance around the fire. Not because they were terrible, there's usually some ritual, right? And then the graveyard of dreams, things that get cancelled or somehow like end up not happening, right? So this is our project management system. Every morning we have a half an hour call where we mostly talk crap and then sort of run through these projects and find out what's going on. Yeah, also in Figma. Let's just go through what it looks like while we're doing discovery. Those are the steps. It'll be in the templates. Obviously, there'll be some selection in this. And then there's the problem statement. It's like, these are the stakeholders. This is the user journey we're dealing with. And those are the pain points. And you can get into this in detail. This one's pretty simple. Some of these things get quite hairy. That's a process that we're trying to deal with. You can see pain points in red, considerations in blue, steps are there, et cetera, et cetera. That goes on and on. I'm not going to bore you. It's just a lot of detail. You all right with that? We spend more time in understanding that than designing. A few years ago, 2 years ago, Nutcase came to us and wanted to develop this app for investing. And he said, I want it to be chat-based. It's like you can invest your money in the stock exchange and in Bitcoin or whatever, but it's a chat. And we listened to him because he was paying us. And because he runs the biggest brokerage in the country. Right. So we're like, okay, fine. The magical broker dude is talking. And we honestly thought, like, it's not how these things work. It breaks the pattern completely. Right? But we got into it, we designed it. He has incredible technologists there who built this with different LLMs doing different, like, what an LLM is, large language model. We talk about AI. But really, the two kinds of AI that we most in contact with are the large language models like ChatGPT and some diffusion models that do the images. Although the large language models are getting quite good at images too, so it's okay. Yeah. So he was like, no, it's the future. So we designed this thing. It's freaking incredible. All you do is talk to this thing, like it asks you how, who you are, what you want to do, how you want to invest your money. It suggests a strategy for you. And then it says, all right, to kick off your strategy, I suggest you do this and do that and do the next thing. Yes?
Does it have a conversation when it comes to insider trading?
This?
Yeah. Because you can't get information when it comes to insider trading. Actually,
yes, so the AI it's not in production yet, so we're hoping to get this to production this year, but it will be a registered financial advisor, which means that it has to work within the rules. Yeah. But that's super easy, right? Because you tell the language model you are a registered financial service advisor. You don't even have to tell that thing what the rules are. I'm not joking, it knows the internet. The rules are there. You just say you don't even have to tell it, it has to keep the rules, because once you've told it it's an advisor, it realizes, okay, got to keep the rules, that's what the rules are, and that's how the thing operates. It's insane. So this dude was right. Turns out, crazy investor boffin dude was right. And right now, this is operating in the way that we would design a product today. Lexi was designed at the same time, doesn't have any AI in it. So we're going to go back for a monster redesign, probably in a year or so that we can give it proper capacity. This one, the dude saw it earlier on, and it's built in. You can also go into charts and stuff like this. But it's like, hey man, that chart you showed me last week or whatever, can you show it to me again? There it is. Like, listen, show me my positions, shows you everything. It's like, okay, is everything funky in the market? No, tells you. So just the chat, the whole thing, right? Pretty incredible. Yeah.
I have a question. Can it
So does the AI itself move and put in your money, or do you do that separately? Do you move your money, or it can't move your money?
Yeah, legally, a financial advisor can't move your money, so yeah, you have to fund it. Yeah, you fund the account. Once the money's in the account. Oh, sorry, no, I see what you're saying. Sorry, no, you're quite right. So you put the money into the holding account with the brokerage firm, and the money's there. Like you put 100 Rand in there, and then if there's a trade and it says, listen, there's a trade for over here that I want you to do for 10 Rand, and you're like, no problem, do the trade. It'll take the money and do the trade. Yes, you're right.
But that would lead to so many other problems. I mean, for instance, one being what happens if it glitches and just puts all your money into a random account? Or another instance being okay, well, this AI, whatever the AI is, I want you, whenever anything is green, put it in, and as soon as something goes red, take out by 0.01 cents. You understand what I'm saying? So are there now restrictions on that type of thinking for people to try to find a way to cheat the system?
Yeah.
Or I guess it's also still in development.
It depends very heavily on how well we do the design job, right? Because we have to think about the human user and what are all the things that people are going to do and design a thing so that it's safe. So, and also what we do is that one language model will suggest the trade. There's another language model that will check the trade. Like, is that a good trade? Does it fit the portfolio? So yeah, great question. It's answered in the detail of the design. Yeah. But yeah. Yes.
I have some questions, but I don't know how far you are in your presentation.
I'm about as far as you need me to be, so you can answer a question.
Okay, can I ask some questions about your business?
Yeah.
Because obviously, I'm in architecture, most of us here are in architecture, so I'm trying to kind of disseminate how you have proceeded through your in your business and how we can take that as a model and possibly apply it to our businesses as well. I have 3 questions. The first one is, how many people are in your team?
We are currently about 15 people.
15 people. That's amazing. I think what you guys are producing is so cutting edge, really impressive products. Second question, when you onboard somebody into your team, you obviously have all these systems and templates and ways of working. How do you get somebody to kind of integrate into that space? Do you have someone training new employees on your systems, on your templates? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're very old-fashioned that way. We kind of have this thing about craft. So every single person in our business has been trained by the person before them. And we partner people up that way. There's normally somebody who's a bit more senior and a bit more junior that make a team, but we make sure that that team is a good functioning team. Look for the total package of skills. And it takes time. It takes a long time. So, I handed down to our head of studio, he handed down to our leads hand down to, and it carries on like that. And then we are still involved. So, in our current team, I mean, I can look across them, all of our current leads. I've spent personally a year with each of them, helping them, level up their skills. So that's how we do that. It's like probably the least efficient way of getting it done, but that's how we do it.
The most human way of thinking. Is that your rule of 2 or 3?
Yeah.
You pay 3 people in 3s.
2 or 3, yeah.
1 senior, 1 junior.
Yeah.
1 in the middle.
Yeah.
Sandwiched.
Yeah.
Okay, then third question. You obviously have developed a certain office culture around your way of working, this kind of thing of a self-driving team. How do you maintain that culture?
It's in the hiring. So we hire for particular characteristics in people and detail orientation, their motivation, and we do all these, we put them through tests that I wouldn't get through. It works so well that some years nobody gets in. That's how good our hiring is.
Okay.
But it's because we've learned over time what works in our system and what doesn't. And so we hire specifically to what fits there. And like our hit rate on people coming in is incredible. I mean, nobody leaves. Well, nobody leaves that, you know, unless they should. So yeah. That's, yeah. So it's in the hiring, and the consequence of that is that the kind of people we end up hiring have particular characteristics that we have to manage as well. So we do know the downsides. You know, our people tend to be a bit neurotic, a bit stressed, and we have to help them there. But they're all virtual, by the way. We don't have an office, so we work remotely in our teams. We have get-togethers from time to time, so that's why we like people in the country. But yeah, so there's an extra challenge when people are not actually in an office together.
So you spoke earlier a bit about how prompting has changed the design process. So I'm very curious about how your focus has shifted from the development side into more the conceptual side, or yeah, maybe the briefing, getting the briefing right or understanding the problem better, because now with apps like Replit and so on, you can actually just almost replace the need for, I won't say replace, but like it makes the building side of the app a lot easier.
Yeah.
And like, how's that changed your business? Because now you can do multiple UXs. You could have, you could test different versions of the same app on Facebook, or, before you even decide this is now the final version, and do it cheaply.
Spare thought for the person who was probably a dude back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being gender specific on this occasion. Ordinarily, dude is like non-gender specific, but like the dude at the drafting table with tie in the olden days, that like when CAD came along, that dude must have been like, the mechanical skills are becoming like the ones that are easier to do. You can do multiple paths and everything. The more difficult thing is then the critical thinking and taking the mess of the world and turning that into order, which the AI is not that good at, because the mess sits in the physical world, in people's heads, in disparate systems, in a very long time.
That's true.
So that ups the ante on your, and our most frequent complaint from clients this year is like, someone somewhere in procurement is like, why are we hiring people to help us think?
Yeah, it's happening with design a lot as well. Why are we hiring an architect when we can, in the near future, just type a prompt, design my house, have a conversation like you would with an architect. But
yeah, the answer is please go ahead, do it yourself. I mean, it just depends on how good you'd like the result.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to pick up on what you said there. I think that's so valuable because, like, for example, hospital systems, like if we take previous, was it Les? Des. He's talking about these like empathy kind of spaces. Where do you put your handbag? Where do you actually like wash the bed pans in hospitals? Or like what do those spaces look like? Where do you wash the linen? Where do all these like service delivery spaces actually, where's the space for that to be designed, And nobody knows like what do those people go through in order to actually produce spaces that are lending themselves to the user experience. Where you kind of that culture you've developed where you've got these little catchphrases, which maybe you don't even know that you're saying them anymore, but that thing of like, what? Go and see.
Go and see for yourself.
Go see for yourself. That's like such a valuable thing. We kind of, and it's kind of contrary to your way of working in a way because you're all online and you've got this go and see thing.
We haven't designed a like hospital experience, but actually that's not true. Never mind. But the thing is that the thing is to get that client into the frame because they're sitting with a whole bunch of HR issues. And a whole bunch of like patient quality issues and a whole bunch of dead time between wards and theatres. And like those are externalities of the problem you're describing of the practicality of what people do with the bedpans.
Yes.
But they haven't made the link. So it's our job to help to make the link for them. I know that you want to solve for efficiency in the ward, but like the biggest holdup on that, by the way, is just how people are organizing all this stuff.
Yes.
Like, can you see it? So, and very often people are rational when you point that out. And we've done big time studies on things like that. Yeah.
That's why your client interview thing is so valuable. Because you're actually getting into grassroots with the people and saying, what are your problems? You're talking to the person who's watching those things and saying, can you just tell me, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And that thing of like, just be done.
Just be done, yeah.
It's so good. Really awesome.
I'm over time, on time. That's fine. That's fine. I just want to show you how we market, because you've seen some of the stuff, and then it ends up, like we eventually we have every project we finish goes up here in the gallery. I just moved something in Figma. Okay. It's like someone's going to break on it. And then all the links for all the projects that who did it, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can advertise like this. So obviously this is our whole spiel. And it's like, our services, our clients. And then like in this particular case, Anglo-American, one project we did for them, cool pictures. And then we talk about, okay, logistics, super exciting. But stuff happens, stockpile things, inefficiencies. And this is currently prototyped in Figma. We are trying to build it with AI. The AI is not there yet. And then it's like, okay, what if you could really see the ore moving in real time? That's cool. And then this is our app that we developed to move ore.
It's like a game.
It's like those world builder games. Like my daughter, when she was little, she used to have to plant things and cross a bridge and get crystals. Yeah, that was the idea behind this. Our developers loved us for that one. Cool. All right, yeah. Let's go and these names. All right. Okay. I think we did the Q&A. Unless there's whatever, I'll take yes.
So you have everything digitalized, like you have AI creating all these databases, storing all this info, like different projects, and like the big corporate companies who have all these massive networks and all this niche. How do you keep it secure from external threats? Like what the security networks do you make sure that nothing gets subverted? During like there's some type of ransomware, and then everything is broken until you have to pay this individual or who's trying to steal the data information, for example, with trading. How do you keep that safe?
Yeah, so all of that stuff lives in Figma, and so we are trusting Figma's cloud security. Figma is there to help companies to generate IP. So, I mean, a lot of the work that happens in Figma is the design of new apps or
You are currently the only person in this conference.
All right, everyone. Sorry, guys. We're going to start in 2 minutes. We managed to fix the issue. Apologies to everyone online for the extended silence. We've managed to rope everything back together. I'm hearing copies of myself. All right. But yeah, 2 minutes, then we should be good. Maybe less. Sure.
Okay, can you guys please settle down? Okay, Nisha van Goeven is going to present to you guys.
Thanks. Okay. Hi, everyone. The talk that I want to share with you today, it's called Fieldwork, Assemblage and Possibility. And it's really a talk about design, but perhaps not in the way that we usually think about it. I think instead of design as something that's polished, that's finished, and really sometimes fully planned, I want to explore design as an embodied, embedded, and evolving process. It's one that begins in material encounters and unfolds through collaborative making. Now, traditionally, fieldwork means going out into the world to observe, to collect data about people, about cultures and environments. But for us, it has become something much larger. It's not only a way of exploring growth, adaptation, and potential, but also a way of noticing boundaries that we so often define ourselves by, and the way that those boundaries can limit us. So in our practice, fieldwork is about dissolving. It's about dissolving those boundaries between the individual and the collective, between research and design, between play and purpose, and what belongs inside the discipline and what spills beyond it. It's less about starting on a page or ending in a product, and it's more about unfolding in context, in conversation, and in collaboration. What I've come to realize is that fieldwork is not just a method. It's a way of seeing, recognizing how our environments can suppress or unlock potential, and learning how to design conditions where people and places can flourish into something unknown, yet deeply needed. The projects that I want to share with you today are actually 4 explorations of that idea. The first one being traceability, the second is wool world, then we have assemblage, lost and found, and lastly, Joburg geologies. And together they've traced how futures are imagined, how hidden stories are surfaced, and how systems can be repatterned through spatial, tactile, and conceptual experimentation. The first project, traceability, actually began with something as ordinary as a floor surface. We were approached by Velvetix to design their experiential stand as part of 100% design for Decorex, both in Cape Town and here in Johannesburg. Now, at first glance, this might seem like a conventional design brief. It's really sort of a company approaching us to design the stand at a trade fair. But we actually saw this as an opportunity to create something more, a sculpted, narrative-rich terrain where the floor itself starts to tell a story. Our concept was something that was rooted in the actual topography of the Velvetix factory, which is based in Pietermaritzburg. And we used contour mapping to shape that exhibition floor, translating the geography of the site into a miniature textile landscape. So walking across this felt less like a showroom and more like traversing a terrain, where we started to sculpt hills made of broadleaf carpets, tufted meadows, and vinyl rivers. With over 50 different products, these were brought into the selection and the final design of the exhibition stand, where each contour layer became, in a way, a geological stratum, a marker of the industrial history, but also the environmental impact, and of course, design possibility. Suspended above was this canopy that was made from Burger Point, which is really a carpet tile that we're all very familiar with. And we use this as a way to celebrate the 40th anniversary of that as a product in South Africa, demonstrating this as a giant loom that was wrapped around giant rollers to reference the inner workings of the factory itself. What was most enjoyable, I think, about this project was really how interactive it became, and it was also presenting itself with constant surprises in the way visitors actually engaged with the stand. We designed the space so that people could actually engage with capturing swatches directly from the various contours. They could walk across the stand, they could climb it, they could sit on it. It became an informal meeting ground. And as well as that, it was also an opportunity to create their own material sample boards and material memories in the process. So visitors didn't just passively view the display, they carried with them a tactile piece of the story through a very immersive experience. The stand itself actually won Best Experiential Stand at Decorex. But traceability for us didn't actually stop there. The stand is part of a much larger concept, an ongoing research project that we have with Velvetix, where we're actually working to map the 9 biomes across South Africa. And here we're collaborating with conservationists, we're gathering field data, and we're also developing new yarns that are rooted in place. And part of this process is really sort of discovering and collaborating with the people within the factory and outside of to actually develop new concepts and new opportunities for flooring as a surface. Now, traceability is a concept that's often hidden and very invisible. We find it often buried in spreadsheets and, of course, logistics. But this project for us was about surfacing that, about showing that every material carries histories, systems, and, of course, choices. Now, we wanted people to feel that underfoot and to understand that design doesn't begin just at the surface, that it's very much shaped by everything that comes before. The second project took us into the Karoo to a working sheep shearing shed on the Dwarfskloof farm near Middelburg. Now, together with fashion house Vivia's Studio, we co-curated Wool World beneath Karoo skies of the Karoo Winter Wool Festival. Now, the shed itself was an extraordinary piece of architecture. It was built from these beautiful timber beams, of course, sheet metal cladding that you find on the farms, and chicken mesh at the top. So it was very raw, it was an honest architecture, it was open to the elements, so there was dust, there was wind, and of course, this beautiful silence that you find in the Karoo itself. Instead of transforming it, we decided to rather listen. So we divided the shed into 4 different rooms, each of them evoking a season in the Karoo. And using very robust materials that you would find on a farm, we created these suspended panels of timber and chicken mesh that would start to guide visitors through the sensory journey. And it was about presenting wool in all its different forms, from raw fleece to spun yarn to sculpted felt, and of course, tufted wool. Each room was less of an exhibition space and more about creating atmosphere. So visitors were able to move through the spaces through cycles of texture, through temperature, through memory, with the ability to slow down, to touch, and to listen. At the heart of the shed, we had the most beautiful sort of gathering space, and that allowed people a place of connection, but also pause. And what was interesting was to see how the community actually made that space their own and started to gather there during the exhibition. Working with the existing shed really taught us that sometimes the most profound spatial gestures come from working with what's already there. What made the project very unique was how it unfolded through collaboration. And I think this is an ongoing part of our process within Hoven, because we approach sourcing more as an invitation and less as a specification. And the wool community responded so generously. We had farmers, we had suppliers, we had designers and makers, and students, and of course artists, and I think over 50 contributors in total. What happened was the result was the shed that was filled with remnants, with offcuts of wool, woven garments, rugs, furniture, and tapestries, many of which the pieces that you can see throughout the films that I'm showing today. Working with Vivia Studio and their experiential learning program also brought students directly into that process, and they become custodians of the material itself, transforming fragments of material and wool into works of beauty. So it was less about spectacle and more about trust, more about collective authorship. Now, we sourced many of the objects that form backdrops to the garments and to the exhibition from the farm. And these found objects were used to display many of the garments, many of the tapestries that you see, and of course the artworks that were suspended. This juxtaposition between old and new was something that was really interesting for us because it actually shed new light and meaning on many of those pieces. What really stayed with me, though, was how people responded. As I mentioned before, visitors were able to slow down. They became attuned to scent, texture, and to sound. They left not only with this impression of wool as a material, but with a sense of wool as memory and as a relationship to the landscape. There's something about walking the land that definitely shifts your perspective. The dry grasses, the rustling fences, that stillness between sounds, it all stays with you. And that sense of scale within the landscape shaped the way we approach the exhibition, less as designers imposing ideas and more as listeners tuning in. We were drawn to this project because it allowed for a kind of fieldwork, I think, both in a literal and a conceptual manner. It was an opportunity to work with rather than for. And wool itself is a remarkable material. It's warm, it's breathable, it's sculptural. But more than that, it holds a trace of its environment. And every fleece actually starts to tell a story. So working with wool is a bit like working with time, because it asks you to slow down, to be tactile, and also to be thoughtful. Verhoeven Wool World was a kind of fieldwork, as I said, in its true kind of embodiment. It brought about these unconventional collaborations between artists and makers and designers and fashion. And then it was more than just spectacle. It was really about connection, about collective energy, and being in touch with the rhythm of the seasons. It took us into the landscape, and it showed us that flourishing in design comes from listening, it comes from gathering, and it also comes from trusting that collective process and letting materials and relationships actually guide that outcome. It also reminded us that material carries more than function. It holds memory, labor, geography, and care. Our third project actually began as a material palette for Workshop 17 in Century City. Now, Workshop 17 is one of my clients. I've been working with them since 2017 on the design of all of their spaces across South Africa and Mauritius. What was really interesting for this one is it quickly became a design focused on restoring lost landscapes through material assemblage. Before Century City became this office district, it was actually a wetland, and it was part of the Deep River floodplain. So you had seasonal marshes, you had fynbos vegetation, an incredible bird life that thrived there. So it provided this habitat for diverse species. And it was that ecological history that shaped our design approach. So this material assemblage that you see here actually looks at how we could create a workspace that coexists with nature. Now, rewilding is a concept that I love in terms of just what it stands for, but also kind of how we approach that in many of our projects. But in this particular case, it's looking at the process of restoring ecosystems to their natural self-sustaining state. And it's by reintroducing those lost species and allowing ecological process to regenerate, and of course, then reducing human intervention in nature. So by integrating rewilding principles into the design concept of this particular workspace, these environments can actually evolve into a living ecosystem. It's one where human productivity and natural regeneration actually can coexist seamlessly. So instead of treating nature as just an aesthetic backdrop, we wanted to create this interdependent relationship, ensuring that both people and of course the environment could actually thrive together. We assembled a material language that started to reflect the natural geology of the site, from stone to ash to oak to timber, woven textiles, leather, very sort of muted color palettes, and of course metals. And one of those key materials was actually Marinese stone, which is a striking conglomerate rock that's made up of pebbles that have been bound together over thousands and thousands of years. So in a way, it became this kind of geological record of ancient riverbeds that spoke to the nature of the site and its existing traces. Now, as part of this concept and investigating the site origins as this wetland ecosystem, we also then invited designer and photographer Yasmin Kleino to collaborate on the design of a series of artworks to create an immersive experience of that landscape. And those are then developed into a series of wallpaper and then translated into fabric for the various spaces. Through these surreal scapes, Yasmin invites us into her series, which is called Dreamscapes. And in a way, it's a personal recollection of how she sees and feels the environment across South Africa. So again, rather than treating nature just as an aesthetic backdrop, Dreamscapes actually imagines a rewilded approach where people, where place and ecology are interwoven into this thriving landscape. So these are just images, or sorry, rather a snapshot of what the current workspace looks like. As you'll see, the translation of some of those wallpaper pieces into fabric for the various chairs that were designed by David Kleino and then using the fabric or the design from Yasmin. What was really interesting is that those chairs actually almost became individual artworks because each one of them is so unique and so different. And it's quite nice because people actually pick up on this narrative. So inviting people into a surreal landscape that is very immersive because the context itself has kind of lost that landscape. So it's how do we reflect the one when we don't have the other? So Assemblage Lost and Found really asked, what if workplaces weren't just sustainable, but actually rewilded? And what if they could operate as living ecosystems? So here, fieldwork became about restoring what was once forgotten and remembering that every site actually does tell a story. It's also, I think it's our job to ask how design might allow for that story to then live on. The last project that I want to share with you was called Joburg Geologies. And this is really about fieldwork being design that's rooted in place. And this ability to walk, to observe, and to engage directly with the landscape, with materials, and of course with communities. For this particular project, it draws color, form, and story from what already exists, creating a work that feels more tactile, grounded, and deeply connected to its context. So this is the final project, as I mentioned. It actually started with a color study that we've created for Olympic paints. It's rooted in the geology of Johannesburg itself, and it's currently being explored through our concept design of Olympic Paints' new color lab, which is a hybrid space where retail starts to kind of interface with research, where color becomes an immersive and collaborative medium. And in a way, it's kind of part cafe, part gallery, part studio, and it turns paint from being just a product into a practice. Now, Johannesburg, as we know, I think we're all very in tune with our surroundings, but it is built on ancient stone, very sort of restless ground. And this palette, in a way, was an opportunity to translate traces and colors from the granite, from the quartzite, from the sun-baked dust of the mine dumps, and also the muted greens that you find on the Highveld. So each of these shades in itself is a fragment of the city's layered history. And this for us was where geology meets industry and where material memory starts to shape the spaces that we actually inhabit. Now, in bringing these colors together, this study that was done in the field offers more of a tactile and place-rooted color language for design that starts to be anchored beneath Joburg's streets. So as part of the fieldwork, we translated these elements, or our view of Joburg and its geology, into a color story where each color became more than a pigment. So it became a way of a fragment of memory, if you want to call it that, and a way for us, where we see the city's layered histories through design. So the first palette that you see here, it's about a warm, sun-baked yellow browns, natural ochres. This was drawn from the mine dumps, and of course it marks Joburg's gold rush legacy. It's earthy, it's bold, it recalls dust in the afternoon light. Then we have a more cool and steady and timeless color palette. This hue is inspired by the granite bedrock that lies beneath the city, and it's a nod to the deep mine shafts and also the shaded streets between our tall buildings. We then have the mineral tones, and those start to reflect the ancient quartzite ridge, its fractured surfaces catching and bouncing and scattering light. Then we move on to the greens, and this is about a muted, more silvery kind of green palette, which echoes the tough grasses, the shrubs, that endure the city's dry winters and storms. And lastly, the deep red browns. These are reminiscent of weathered steel railway lines, industrial remnants that crisscross Joburg's landscape. And so yes, that's really kind of the color story, which became the catalyst for the design intervention to follow. So this is the concept for the Olympic Color Lab, and it's a hybrid space. It's where color meets culture. The Color Lab is very much about a sensory and interactive environment where paint, again, as I said, is no longer just a product, but really this medium for experience, for collaboration, and also experimentation. It is a place that also brings together technology and creativity, and of course coffee, into this living laboratory of color. It's a very sensory and interactive environment, And the thinking here was that we could explore it through three distinct spatial interventions. The first being the store itself. So this is the brick and mortar space. This would be the retail space that gets deployed across various shopping malls. Then we have the pop-up, which in itself would be a space that actually is like a mini studio, even a mini gallery, a digital paint lab, and a micro cafe. And so this could become a space that's utilized more as an exhibition or pop-up stand over kind of a period of time. And then lastly, it's the storefront. And it's this interesting kind of aspect for us where we've really started to look at like activating disused storefronts in malls or spaces. And here we thought there's an opportunity to invite curiosity and of course color and creating immersive color palettes and in a way inviting people into a window or in a world of color that starts to kind of engage people with Olympic paints as a particular brand. So we look forward to sharing more of this concept because it's still evolving, and we're really at the sort of design stages of how we explore this with this particular paint brand. But what I wanted to say here was that Joburg Geologies is fieldwork through color stories. So bringing it back to fieldwork, I think at an urban scale, it was about walking the city. It's about noticing those scars. It's about translating that geology into a shared language of color, and also then developing the physical and spatial narrative to be shared with a wider audience. Across these 4 projects, I think what's really important is that I've come to see fieldwork not as something separate from design, but really at its most essential form. It's not about extraction. It's very much about attention, and it is in itself a form of care. So it's designing with and not for, with materials, with landscapes, with people, and with stories. In traceability, we map those unseen systems into form. And in Wool World, we honor that labor, the memory, and the generosity that was woven into a fiber. In Assemblage Lost and Found, we remembered lost ecologies. And in Joburg Geologies, we actually gave color back to place. So together, these projects are not just outcomes, they're very much points on a map of practice. And it's a practice that's shaped through fieldwork. And this is a video that I just want to share with you. Captures a little bit about fieldwork from the crew. So I want to leave you with this question about how we could consider practice. What might happen if we approach architecture and design not only as careers, but as ways of perceiving and engaging with the world? If we work less as problem solvers and more as field workers, attentive, collaborative, open to what emerges, what new possibilities could we imagine? Thank you.
Any questions from anyone?
Yes.
One question. What does being a designer mean to you, and what do you want to put out into the world?
It's constantly changing because I studied architecture and then moved into interior design. And I think I resonate with what Des mentioned earlier about calling oneself a designer, because I think our work touches on so many different disciplines, and we're constantly shaped by the collaborators that we work with. So it's an interesting question, but I think I can't actually define it, because I take on different roles depending on the nature of the project and whether we're working with artists, with fashion designers, with makers. I think that process and engagement actually enriches the outcome. And I think for us, it's about having a kind of a less determined outcome and more about following a process. And for me, that's where fieldwork has come about, as a way of being able to listen and tune in and to engage in a way that's very much about feeling, being able to walk the land, being able to engage with the materials, to be physically present and be part of that process, whether it's as a curator, whether it's as a maker, or just as a designer when it comes to the interiors for, a client like Workshop 17. I think we will always take on those different roles depending on the nature of the project or product that we're producing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, so fantastic, but that's really helpful. I found it very rigorous in experience, through materiality, general experience, and the best advice I ever got when understanding site and context was shut up and just observe. Just be quiet and observe what people are doing, because you tend to get in the way of people and they change their personality around you when you experience site. So all of that is very rigorous in your process. And I noticed with the design is bringing in a lot of actual field work.
Yes.
So how do you as a designer stop yourself? Because I find myself sometimes going towards the gimmick. How do you as a designer stop yourself and say, okay, I have to put a pause on my thoughts now, because that's becoming a gimmick and not actually what I'm trying to make a person experience or achieve with my design?
I think, if I look, and I do think there's a need to observe and sometimes remain quiet. So for instance, when we were engaging in Dwarsvlei Farm in the Karoo, I have no connection with that landscape whatsoever. So what was really interesting was going into that particular space, we already had been given the parameters of what the space, the spatial layout of that shed, more or less. So we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to work with. We had developed sort of an initial framework or initial spatial layout. We had identified plug points and lighting and all the kind of base infrastructure elements that one would do as a designer. But what I always love about these moments is that when you're actually physically on site and you're engaging with the people and the community from there, you learn so much more. And I think that's the ability to take a step back and tune in and allow other people and their voices to come through, because it's very much about a collective authorship. And that's what I think creates that final product. So what we had in mind about creating atmospheres across the seasons, we were able to still bring that narrative into the space, but without predetermining and dictating the process. You actually invite a much better outcome if you actually just allow other people to engage and to listen and to be able to kind of share ideas. And I mean, we learned so much from the students, because these were fashion design students that were taking offcuts and remnants of wool and all sorts of things to create these screens that we had designed. So we designed the framework for it. We knew how we wanted to separate visually and acoustically the space and how we wanted to suspend a lot of the artworks and tapestries and so on. But one couldn't fully realize this until you're actually immersed on the site. And I think a lot of that, without kind of, and I think when you're true and authentic to the material that you're working with and the people that you're engaging with, the outcome will reflect an authenticity. And I think even if I look at, like, for instance, the work that I do with Workshop 17, it always starts in a material sample board. So that material assemblage is one of many for every project. And I don't start with a kind of a concept, I start with material, collecting material, gathering material. And for me, the stone was a material that spoke to the origins of the site. And without kind of without having done that research, I wouldn't have known that. And I probably could have just chosen any stone. And that could have, turned out appropriate for the space. But somehow when you're able to tell the story, and I think they have a deeper meaning attached to the material or the visuals or the imagery itself, it becomes a much than something that is just on trend. I always say I hate trends because we can't forecast, right? We can only determine what's within the site. And hopefully whatever we instill in the space has a timeless quality to it that outlives these sorts of trends that will come and go. Yeah.
That side of the
Exceptional work. Actually, one word, prolific, right? I just want to ask, right, for a civilian's perspective, right? Of course, your work is so enriched with narrative, and it also encompasses a lot of tactility. How do you make the work accessible to a civilian so that they can also capture those nuances or those richer processes that you actually immerse yourself in? Because let's say, for instance, I don't know anything about interior design, architecture, and design holistically, and I walk into Workshop 17. I'm appreciating the space for what it is, but I still lack the narrative. How do you make that connection of the narrative to a civilian?
Good point. Because I think whatever we're designing for, and I think this goes back to what Des was talking about, and he framed it so beautifully about design with empathy. If you design with people in mind, and you're designing for that, and because I don't think one has to always get the space. You don't always have to understand the concept. For me, it's more about feeling. And if you, in a workspace, for example, if you know people are there and they gravitate to that space to do productive and focused work, that in itself, you know that you're getting something right? So that's what interests me, especially with workspace design, because there's so many learnings post-occupancy that I think as a designer, we often forget that design does not end when you open or you launch a space or you finish a product or whatever it is. It's very much about how people engage with it after, because actually you're designing for members, right? You're designing for those opportunities for adaptive reuse, how people use that space in a way that you hadn't intended. And I love that, because that's always a surprise, and it's in a way a delight, because you could think you've got a design and how it gets used and the functionality, but someone will completely mix that up. And when people feel comfortable enough to make it their own and to do things that you wouldn't have thought about, then you know people are feeling comfortable. And I think it comes down to designing for the senses. So there's a particular area of design that I'm fascinated with, and it's about neuroaesthetics. And it looks at like beauty and how we design beautiful space or beautiful. I think if we design with care, ultimately there will be an element of beauty. And that comes down to the behaviors and of people within those spaces. So how people gravitate to or repelled by or feel comfortable or feel welcome. And it's how then our brain perceives that and how we respond from a behavioral point of view. So there's a lot that one can learn from observing. And And I'm always in the workshop 17 spaces because I feel like I've designed the spaces, but I actually want those learnings. And I want to understand how people are engaging, because sometimes one can get it horribly wrong. And you then know what you need to do or tweak to change that. So it's very, I don't think design is ever finished. And I think we're constantly learning. And I think by allowing ourselves to always be learners in every project, we invite so much more to that process. And because I think one is always learning by doing. And if we're not, then there's a problem.
I like that answer. I think it also spans across multi-disciplines, scale as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I think, you were asking earlier about kind of working across disciplines and kind of what design means for me. As I said, I don't really know anymore, but I think what's interesting for me is that no matter what the project is, it can be the smallest intervention. And Justice touched on it earlier when he spoke about the film piece it was actually for Africa to Quinn, which is an NGO that we worked with on designing their libraries, which is the digital commons. And it started out literally as a brief to paint the walls and redo the floors. And we completely translated that into a series of murals, participatory workshops with the learners. And so we expanded on that. And I think that's our ability as designers to be able to expand the brief, to identify those gaps or what's not being said that we can, in our creative process, add value to. And hopefully then the final product becomes a way that resonates with the learners, but also resonates with a different audience. Yeah.
Thanks so much for everyone who joined in today's session, including everyone online. I think this was a very interesting and productive day in understanding designers across different professions. That was the intent behind the industry talk series, and we've got 3 more days left. To me, what's quite great is how we accidentally stumbled upon this common narrative across all 4 presentations this morning. And it's just around immersion in the process, immersion in the clients, immersion in the design, and not about getting it right, but getting involved, which is quite fascinating how we just stumbled upon that today. So thank you to everyone, all the presenters who left for meetings. I know this is quite a difficult time during the day to present, but thank you for coming through. You guys are always welcome at our campus, and hopefully everyone enjoyed the presentations today. We are thoroughly excited to see the rest of the presenters as well. So thanks to everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day. If anyone here parked at Pirates, if anyone did, just grab a parking ticket quickly at the back. Thanks so much.
Thanks. There's questions as well.
Yes. Engage. Set up. Set up.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing this. It's brilliant. It's so nice to see. To be able to, I think, in practice, to be able to share and learners to be able to engage. I think
It's absolutely valuable. No, fantastic.
It's also valuable for us.
I'm going to greet everyone online. We're going to end the session now. Thanks so much for joining. It was a fantastic day.
Finding a country yet, but we all work separately. So, thank you.